Welcome to WeCan, Bishop Kevin Foreman. You're the people's bishop, pastor, author, entrepreneur, speaker, philanthropist, coach. You help people rise, evolve, and lead. You're the founder of the Harvest Church, the Harvest Bible College, author of many books, I believe 5 books. You are one of Denver's most influential African Americans. You're induced into Colorado's Gospel Music Hall of Fame. And so we cannot wait to hear your story, Bishop Foreman. So talk to us about your work and your mission first.
Well, you know what? The work is what drives me. I always say it like this, that passion gets me up in the morning. Purpose wakes me up in the morning. I don't need an alarm clock. And I've been that way since I was a kid. First of all, thanks again so much for having me. So excited to be with you and all of your listeners and viewers and your audience. I know that this is going to add great value to the lives of everybody listening, because while you just listed out a lot of great accomplishments and achievements, one, I feel like I'm just scratching the surface. I feel like I'm just getting started. I had the privilege of just getting started early. The joke is I came out of my mom's womb with a Bible and a briefcase, that I had this affinity towards spirituality and this affinity towards success in business and entrepreneurship and leadership. These things just came out of me naturally. Nobody had to tell me to do that. It's kind of like a fish in water. You drop it in water, it does what it does. And the same thing was true for me. I just came out and I was different. I was a different kind of kid. I was the type of kid who I wanted to be friends with the teachers because I said they got the power. I wasn't concerned about my classmates. I was concerned about who had the power, who had the leadership, who had the influence, who had the ability. And so as a result, I just was very different. I was the type of kid who, while my classmates were out, playing at recess rather, I was in the classroom grading their papers and helping the teacher. I was the kid that was the student council president and the safety patrol president, like helping other kids cross the street and stuff. There was this real nature that there was this paternal side, this leader side of me. I wanted to see other people protected and wanted to see other people win. And honestly, that thread has ran throughout all of my life. So I got started really, really early. Started my first business when I was 12. In fact, there's still a picture up of me at this bank in Denver called Young Americans Bank. When I was 12 years old, we pioneered their business loan program. And so I was the first kid to do it. And they still have a picture of me from when I was 12 years old down at that bank. So every entrepreneur, every young person that goes on the second floor of that bank to the entrepreneurial training center, they've got to see me holding that business plan. And so at the same time, I got started in ministry. I got in ministry. I was a drummer. I got to tell you, I was horrible. I was not good at all. I could not keep the beat. I would speed up. I would slow down. I'd speed up. I'd slow down. But I eventually got much better. And later on, I was inducted into the Colorado Gospel Music Hall of Fame. And just saw some amazing things happen. We simultaneously built Denver's largest Black-owned mortgage brokerage, and built an incredibly far-reaching church that has impacted many lives. And so many different things that I've had the privilege of being able to do. Literally, I have this in my notes that I exist to use my life to change the lives of other people.
Bishop Foreman, what an unbelievably inspiring intro to you. So talk to us a little bit about those pivotal points in your life where you knew you were really onto something and you could see the impact you were having, which fired you on to do more of it.
Yeah, I think honestly, it's so if I go back to childhood, one, I have an amazing mom who just did an amazing job. She's an amazing woman who she's an interior designer, amongst other things. And one of the things we were redoing this particular room that I'm in now, and she wrote on my stickies, my stack of stickies over here. She wrote "Love You" and signed her name. She's an amazing woman, and she taught me how to love. She taught me how to survive. She taught me how to persevere. Growing up, while I had an amazing mom and many great examples, my stepfather was an abuser. He was a womanizer. He was a lot of things that when you see, you say, this is not what you want to be. This is not what you want to do. And I think sometimes in life, we are given the gift of not who to be, but of the gift of who not to be. Sometimes not the gift of what to do, but the gift of what not to do. And so he was an extremely, extremely smart man. I mean, he's passed away now. Very smart man. I used to joke with him and say, "You're so smart, you're stupid," because there's no reason he shouldn't have been like just a multimillionaire, if not billionaire. He was very charismatic. He had a lot of great qualities, but he never was able to get past what I wrote a book about called Sins of the Father, some of the generational stuff that's passed down and around. And whether a person chooses to believe that or not, all you have to do is look around your family, look around your life, look around your community, look around where you grew up. There are these patterns of behavior that can be destructive that are passed down and around. And sometimes it's not destructive in, a very obvious way. Like there's certain things we can look at and say that's obviously destructive, but maybe it's being too shy when you need to be bold. That's destructive because it robs you of your future. Maybe it's too passive when you need to be assertive. That's destructive because it robs you of an opportunity. So there was a lot that I saw in him that really inspired me to not be that way. So I use that as part of my inspiration to say, okay, I got to be different. I want different. I was born in Denver, but raised in Memphis and raised in this part of Memphis, Tennessee. People may know Memphis, Tennessee, Elvis, lots of other musical inspirations, BB King, Beale Street. Memphis is known as a musical city, a huge cultural hub. And the Orange Mound is a part of the community that has a lot of what we might consider negative statistics.
Mm.
Immediately post slavery in America, it was what they call one of the many Black Wall Street. So it was an area of high economic impact, high economic activity. And over time, as was designed by many of the programs that existed, and policies that were implemented, it fell to the wayside. And so I saw gangs and I saw drugs and I saw all of the things that you see in some of those inner city communities. And I just remember thinking, I want different. I want my life to be different. And what kid is thinking that way? A kid with a Bible and a briefcase in his hand. And so I just wanted different. And when I began to see the impact of what I did, I can distinctly remember back to second grade. Now, I was a very shy kid. And a lot of people, when I tell them that, they're like, oh my God, not you, Bishop Foreman. The people was shy. I was very shy. If I'm honest, and I'm going to be honest, this is just for you and your audience. Y'all don't tell anybody. I can still have moments where that shy will try to creep up on me. It's the most funny thing to see. So I can get in front of crowds of tens of thousands of people and sometimes be like, oh, what am I going to do? Every now and then it'll try to creep up on me. And I distinctly remember at second grade, I was asked by the principal of the school there in Memphis, Dunbar Elementary School is the name of it. And they said, Smuckers, the jelly and jams and all the different things, they needed a spokeskid for their product. And they said, we recommended you. And so they come in, there's this huge rally. You got the mayor, you got the news, you got all these things. They come to the school, they do a rally. It's, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of kids there. You got all these officials. And so I become the spokesperson or the spokeskid for Smuckers. And I remember thinking when I got on that stage, I came alive. And I remember thinking, okay, this is what I'm supposed to do. When I got in front of groups and crowds of people, I saw the impact, I saw the response. And I said, there's something there. Back to the fish in water. This is a fish in water. When I'm doing this, I'm alive.
Bishop Foreman, what do you feel matters most to you now, and how do you want to matter after so many years of giving to people?
Yeah, I think that's just it. There's that story that says on everybody's, tombstone, there is the year they're born and the year they leave, and there's that dash in the middle. I want my dash to be so full of statistics. And when I say statistics, I mean data points where lives have been changed and impacted. So that's why I pay attention to the data. I can tell you how many people are connected. I can tell you how many, testimonies of this, how many testimonies of that. It's because it's a quantifiable way to say, here is the impact. Here are the lives that were impacted that we were able to quantify. So many more we can't. But to me, that's the difference. And I look at some of the things we've done. When you talk about the hundreds of thousands of pounds of food that we've given away, the thousands of families we've adopted. I look at all of the philanthropic things that we've done. on a consistent basis, not just during Christmas, not just during, the holiday season, but on a consistent basis. To me, I want the earth to still say that Bishop Foreman made a difference when he was here. To me, if you were to no longer exist, here's the question: would it matter that you ever did? And I think if you lead with that intentionality, it makes decisions very simple, because at the end of the day, here's an interesting statistic: 1 out of 1 people is going to die. 100%. Everybody's gonna die. And people are like, oh my God, that's so crazy. Well, it's the truth. So when you live knowing that eventually you won't be here at some point, whether that's 75 years, 100 years, 120 years, whatever, eventually you won't be here. So the only thing I get to leave in the earth is the impact that I made. And I want that impact to speak far beyond the time that I am physically in the earth. Whether that's a family that's been impacted, a mom that's been impacted, a dad who's been impacted, a kid, whatever it might be. To me, that's really, really important. It's about whose lives did you change for the better while you were here, and if you were to no longer be here, would it matter that you were here?
Bishop Foreman, you are so unbelievably good at creating community, at rallying, at getting people to follow you, to listen to you. What do you feel? What are those qualities that make you so good at that?
Wow. I'll be honest, I'm always striving to get better. So I always like to live life as a
Like
student.
all of us,
And-
yeah.
right, right. And so I live as a student. And the reason I say that is because I'm constantly evolving. Here's one of my mantras: I live in competition with yesterday's version of myself.
Mm.
So I'm not in competition with any other person. I'm competing. My Wednesday me is competing with my Tuesday me. My Friday me will compete with my Thursday me. Every day I'm striving to get better. And I think that's a very important piece, because when you talk about community and you talk about building people and building lives and connecting people across America and around the world, that's not something that, frankly, I necessarily intended to do. I intended to just focus on my local area. I intended to just, do certain things. And I often call it, sometimes we stumble into purpose. Sometimes we stumble into, people like to use the word destiny. I'm not a big fan of the word destiny because it implies destination, like you arrive. And I think that's the problem. You don't get there. You're always getting there, because once you get there, now there's somewhere new to get. And so we're always in this journey. So for me, I think the first quality is always operating as a student. Always something to learn, always something to gain, always something to be inspired by. I never look at somebody else who maybe hasn't done as much, or maybe hasn't accomplished or accumulated as much, and say, I can't learn from them. To the contrary, I learn from everybody. I got a perfect story for you. So yesterday, I'm looking at a piece of property for the church. We moved our headquarters from Denver to Atlanta. So we're looking at a piece of property for us to formally launch. And there's a gentleman that's there. And the gentleman clearly has had a little bit to drink. The gentleman clearly is, I'll say it this way, he's in between blessings. You can tell he's, navigating through a rough spot in life. And my words are important here, because I never believe in speaking down about people or speaking negatively about people's situations. He's just in between blessings. And so he comes up. And so you never know. You got to be safe. Got to be secure. So he comes up, he's talking, and so he begins to share some of his story and what have you, and he says, you look like $1 million, is what he says. He said, I'd never seen $1 million until I see you. I said, well, thank you, I appreciate that. So he's telling me his story. And he says the line, and it's a biblical line. He says, God's got a ram in the bush for you. It just means that there's something unexpected good that's coming your way. You weren't looking for it, and it's coming. And I said to him, I said, you preaching? And he said, I can see myself in the pulpit. I said, well, you can do it. Well, I made a lot of mistakes and all that. I said, no, you can do it. You got it. He said, Bishop, I'm 61 years old. And goes on, he tells his story. And as he's telling his story, he begins to talk about some of the challenges and stage 4 cancer and all of that. And as he's doing that, the natural me, I'm the encourager, I'm the builder. I'm like, I can see you way beyond this corner that you're hanging out at, because I know there's more life for you after this. And in that, 5-minute exchange, there was so much that I learned. And here's how he identified himself. He said, my name is, and he said his name, and he said, but everybody calls me BB. And he said, because I'm about that business. And so I took from that yesterday. Because one of the things I do when people call me and they'll say, "What are you doing?" Or, how you doing? I say, "I'm handling business." I said, "You know what? Today, effective immediately, I'm BB. I'm about that business." I said, "I'm learning." Because after all that man went through, for him to have such a joyful disposition, it reminded me to be thankful. Simple lesson, right? A lesson I teach, simple lesson. I live life as a student. So everywhere I go, I'm learning. That's the first thing. Second thing I would say, and to wrap to your point of what are some of those qualities that you need, is you need a genuine care for people.
Yeah.
Some people like crowds, but they don't like people. They like big gatherings, but they don't like people. I believe you genuinely have to care about people. And that can be difficult, especially when you've been hurt, when you've been betrayed, you've been let down, people have done you wrong. And here's what I say: who hasn't? Everybody's had some type of negative people experience. But if you genuinely want to see the best for people, I believe that's going to exude that authenticity, excuse me, is going to come through. And I think that it creates a feeling of safety. When people feel safe, they'll follow you to the moon.
So, Bishop Foreman, you preach, you have this incredible devotion to people, to people's lives. The care comes through this air of transformation that you literally carry everywhere, where all of a sudden people see possibilities, right? You're this light
Mhm.
where people see possibilities. Talk to us about these tips that you could have, advice for all of us to rise, to evolve, and to lead. And you say this all the time. This is in everybody, right? This
Yeah.
Christ is in everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think too, my latest book, which will release soon, is called History Makers. And it's talking about how all of us are history makers in our own way. And sometimes people say, "Oh, I'm just a mom, I'm just a dad, I'm just a business owner, I'm just a podcast host, I'm just a this, I'm just a that." But the reality is I believe this, that we were sent to the earth to for the time that the earth needed us most. That's important. So there's something that the earth needs that you have. It's in you. Number one. So there's a sense of purpose, that there's a deposit I'm supposed to make while I'm here. There's some withdrawals, but there's some deposits I'm supposed to make while I'm here. And then secondly, in addition to that, there is this understanding that there is something that when I do it, I do what I do when I do what I do what I do how I do it, and I do it so well that it impacts the lives of other people. And so I think when you talk about how do we all do it in that book, History Makers, I talk a little bit about recognizing that where you are the line crosser. Someone before you, someone in your bloodline, some of your family has never crossed the lines you've crossed. You're the boundary breaker. There's boundaries, most often superficial boundaries
Mm.
that we erect around ourselves. I can't do this. I can't do that. I'm a woman. I'm a man. I'm this. I'm that. I'm black. I'm white. I'm tall. I'm short. I'm that. I'm that. These superficial boundaries that we often put around ourselves that limit us. But everybody listening, everybody watching, everybody hearing this, you've literally already broken those boundaries. You've done things that you already were told you couldn't do. Worst thing to do for somebody like me is tell me I can't do it, because I'm going to do it just to show you that I can. You are a line crosser, boundary breaker, curse breaker, history maker. And so everybody has got that in them. I think one, recognizing you're born for the time you need it most, which is now. Second, recognizing what's the thing that angers you, because the thing that angers you is often the thing you're assigned to. The thing that bothers you or burdens you is often the thing that you're sent to bring change to. I look at all of the things that I do as it relates to ministry, as it relates to business, and the things that I am most effective at are the things that bothered me, are the things that angered me. And sometimes, people will say, pursue your passions. I think the challenge with that is that you're passionate about what you're good at. But what if you're not good at something that you're eventually going to be the game changer for? Again, I look at music. I was not good when I started. I became better and had a passion for it. I looked at certain aspects of ministry. Do you know I literally, when we started the church, I was driving down the street and fear came over me in a way like it was paralyzing. It like gripped me because I said to myself, oh my goodness, what are you going to do to come up with something to say every week? I like, oh my God, do you know how to start a business? You can do that with, like the back of your hand. But what are you going to do to come up with something to say every week? And this fear came over me. That's the least of my concerns. I got so much to say. I've got notes and notes and notes and notes and notes and messages and teachings. I had so much to say. I created a whole Bible college. I had so much to say. I created these daily pop-ups. Like that's the least of my concerns. So I think for many people, look at the thing that angers you. Look at the thing that burdens you. Look at the thing that bothers you, because there's a reason it bothers you and it doesn't bother anybody else. There's a reason you look at it and say, this has got to be different. There's got to be a better way, a different way. There's got to be something there. Third thing that I would say, how do we all tap into that leader, that influencer, that history maker that's on the inside of us all, is to recognize that everything you've been through, it was to train you. I don't believe that God wastes anything.
Mm.
And so everything that we've been through has been to train us, to prepare us, to get us ready. That one of my favorite scriptures is Romans 8 and 28. And it says this, and we know that God calls us all things to work together for the good of them that love him. Let me simplify it, distill it, and encapsulate it. All things are always working together for my good, which, and not just my good, but for the good of those around me. Not just my good, but I believe for the glory of God. And that being said, everything that I've been through. So I look back to the abuse I saw of my stepfather. It is what makes me be able to be a protector of people today, because I was a protector in my mind. I was a kid, but protector in my mind of my mom, my brother, my sister. It's the thing that made me want to help to lead people and shepherd people and do it in a way where people could be safe, where people would have an environment where it was okay to be who they were and to have their background and have whatever their issues and vicissitudes and nuances were. All of that was preparation. I look at some of the bad, quote unquote, bad things that happened. I looked at, I remember working for a company as the director of marketing, and that thing did not work out well at all. It was one of the few jobs I've ever had in my life, because most of my life I've been an entrepreneur and built businesses and companies, and it didn't work out. And I remember thinking, oh man, what a bust. But it wasn't a bust. I learned skills on that job that I would take those skills and then build Denver's biggest by the time I was 21 by a black man. And so the list goes on and on and on. God wastes nothing. So everything you've gone through is like making a cake. And I don't know about you. I don't know. Do you bake? Are you a baker?
No, I'm not a good baker, but I know
Okay.
exactly what you mean. I'm better at it in life, as in the actual
Okay.
baking, I leave to somebody else.
I understand. I get it. So you know where I'm going with this is that
Yes.
when you're making a cake, I used to be able to cook really well and bake really well. Something happened one day and it just left. It's gone. So that's not me today. But you think about it. You take the cakes, excuse me, you take the flour, you take the sugar, you take the vanilla, you take the eggs, you take the oil. Oil by itself, I don't know about you, but drinking that is disgusting. Eggs by themselves. I know some people do it for protein, just eggs and egg. That's disgusting to me. Vanilla by itself, not the most tasty thing when you're taking that vanilla extract. Flour by itself, not easy to consume. Those individual ingredients aren't great. But when you bring all those things together, it creates something that is amazing. And I think that's the same thing that happens in our lives. This wasn't great. That wasn't great. Didn't really like that. Didn't really like that. But when you put all of that together, it creates something amazing.
Bishop Foreman, and you lead with that incredibly powerfully. So, how can we encourage others to live a little bit more in favor of others? How
Mm,
can one sort of obviously lead by example? You lead by
mm,
example, and we
mhm,
show many people on WeCan who lead powerfully by example. But what are the sort of few things that we can leave everyone here with to just think about this notion that we are not just here for ourselves, we're here
mhm,
for everybody else.
mhm. I think it's stepping back and looking at life and saying, Whose life is better because I'm here?
Mm,
Whose life is better because I've done something? And this doesn't just have to be in a philanthropic way.
yeah.
It's not just giving someone something.
Mm,
This could be as an entrepreneur. You've built a business that builds jobs, that builds families, that builds futures. That's important. Those lives are better because of that. So it doesn't just have to be in a philanthropic way or a giving way or a ministry way or those types of things. There's lots of ways that we can all add value to the lives of other people. So I think number one, when you say how do we recognize it's bigger than us and we can impact the lives of other people, is one, just asking that question. And sometimes the best thing to do is to go ask people. I ask people, so tell me what's the value, tell me what's changed about your life. And I like to do research. I like to know. And this is, I do this personally, I do this business, I do this ministry. I want to know, how is your life better because I've been in it. And so I make it my business to say no one's going to exit my life not being better than when they came into my life.
mm,
It's the way that I live, and much of it is just the natural outflow of who I am. And I think secondly, for all of us, is to really recognize that, and I mentioned it earlier, is that when you exit the earth, what will the earth say about you? What will the earth testify about what it is that you did? Oh, that guy had a lot of money. Is that it? Because you don't get to take that money with you. And money's important. Don't get me wrong. It's important. Bible says money answers all things. So there's nothing wrong with that. But like, is that it? Is that the whole story? Is that guy had a lot of money? That lady had a lot of money? Or is it, oh my God, they had a lot of money and look at all of what they did. Look at how many jobs they created. Look at how many people's lives are impacted. I think one of the other things to do is I live life this way, knowing that I'm going to have to give an account for my life one day. And I think that's important because if we live life like we don't have to answer for it, then we'll live life, I believe, in a very reckless way,
mm.
in a very selfish way, in a very me, myself, and I way. And what robbery you're doing for the earth and for other people if you only live for you. You're robbing us of the beauty of being able to experience you and experience you in all the different facets. So I say to every person, you can do whatever you do, whether that's a business owner, that's a leader, a politician, whatever it might be, an influencer. You can do that, but do that in such a way that you recognize this has got to impact the lives of other people. And that impact is going to come through a variety of different ways. But I encourage everybody to ask people. That's what I do. I ask. I do research. How's your life better? How's your life different? How have I made an impact? What did you get from me? What did you hear me say? And I do that in every scope. I do that with friends. I do that with family. And the reason I do that is because to me, I want to know. Sometimes you think you're good at A and really you're good at C. Sometimes you think you're really doing B and you're really doing like 94. Like you're not even in the alphabet, you're in the numbers. Like it's a totally different thing. But you never know if you don't ask people. And I think sometimes people are really good at thinking they're really good at something that they're not necessarily really good at making an impact in the lives of people. And I think about this. Sometimes I'll ask people after a message, so tell me what stood out. And they'll tell me that. So I know what should have stood out based on my preparation of the message. They'll tell me the things that stand out. And it's always interesting to me because they'll often say, I was like, I didn't say that though. But that's what they heard me say.
Mm.
So my message took them on a journey to unlock a part of their own story, of their own journey, of their own life. And I gave them the key to do that. So I recognized, okay, great. I'm great at giving keys, and keys are about empowerment.
Yeah.
So I live my life to empower people. So I think those are some simple ways, right, that all of us can walk through our daily life making that greater impact.
Bishop Foreman, you obviously have a very big vision of the world that you want to create, right? Give me that big vision. What is the world that you want to see?
Oh, listen, that now
What
that's
does
a great
that look
question.
like?
Yeah, that's a great question. So when I think of the world, I think of anything that I have the ability to impact. So there are these four sayings that we say: love God, love people, love life, make history. And so when I think about the world I impact, it's those four components where there is a spirituality. That's the loving God, loving people. And loving people doesn't mean you have to like everybody. It doesn't mean it doesn't mean you have to agree with everybody. It just means that I do unto others as I'd have them doing to me. All right, loving life, enjoying your own life. I think many people go through life and don't really enjoy it. I heard a very interesting statistic the other day. Most millionaires aren't happy. Now, many people are trying to become millionaires. That's their goal. Like, oh, I got it. But when those who already achieved this coveted status that many people seek, the statistics say 51% say they're not really as happy as they thought they would be, which means that you can have things and not love your life. And so when I think about loving life, it's the way you approach life. It means on a mountain, I'm enjoying it. In a valley, I'm enjoying it. When it's great, I'm enjoying it. When it doesn't feel great, I'm enjoying it. If it's great, I'm enjoying it. If it's the gutter, I'm enjoying it. And then making history, living that daily life to impact the lives of other people. So when I think about the world I want to create, we've got the church, which we're about to relaunch in terms of in Atlanta as history makers. And that's the next evolution of who we are as an organization. We'll be 20 years old in 2026.
Amazing.
Which is amazing, and so it's the next evolution of who we are, and so we'll make people who make history. We're already doing that, but I really want to have a focus on that as we move forward because our reach is constantly, consistently expanding, always reaching people across America, around the world. And for me, the influence that I get to have over leaders, leaders like me. And the reason leaders like me is because I'm honest with leaders. I'm authentic with leaders. I talk about the real struggles you deal with as a leader and not just sit there in the struggle, but let me give you a roadmap to get out of that struggle, to get out of that frustration. Every coach needs a coach. Every leader needs a leader. Every general needs a general. And so I connect with people really well who lead things and often don't have a safe place to bleed. Because if you lead, you're going to bleed, and you need to have a safe place to do that. You can't bleed in front of everybody because everybody doesn't know what to do with your blood. Some people throw it back at you. They don't know how to help clean the wound, and then let's get you moving. And so when I look at that, that becomes the next part of that evolution. I look at the community that we're building, where it's called Kings and Priests, spiritual and successful. Going back to me as a 12-year-old, how do I navigate these two worlds that there's this business side, but there's also the spiritual side? How do I connect these two worlds together? And they not be in conflict and they not, fight against one another. So you've got that. You got the church, you got that. I look at the Bible college that we're building, encouraging, inspiring, and building leaders to be able to replicate and do not only what I've done, but exceed it, do far beyond that. I look at the businesses that we buy and the businesses we build for my one of my separate companies, and I look at how we're creating, as I mentioned already, we're creating not just jobs, not just opportunities, but creating ways and vehicles for people to transform their lives. I've been doing that since my first business. I was always hiring people that didn't have any experience to teach them the business and whatever that might be so that they would learn those different things. So the world I want to create is a world where everything that I am, I've poured it out into so many people that you'll never be able to silence Bishop Kevin Foreman from the earth because he's been poured out into so many people that it reverberates.
You talk a lot about entrepreneurship and leadership, Bishop Foreman. Give us your top tips for people that are listening.
Oh, this is good. Number one is recognize that every business is the marketing business. I don't care what you're in the marketing business. Second business you're in is the people business. The marketing business is first before people because, if you don't market, you don't get people. A lot of times with business, people think, oh, I'm in the software business. Okay, well, who's using the software? People. Well, how are you going to get those people? Marketing. Everything is marketing. And I think, number one, I would say to everybody and anybody, if you're talking about entrepreneurship, you're talking about business, you've got to recognize that you are in the business of marketing. And number two, you're in the business of people. And if you get those two things right, it really doesn't matter what the rest of it is that you're doing. And I don't mean that in a dismissive way. I don't care if you're selling envelopes or chapstick or AirPods or a podcast, whatever, is one of the greatest lessons I learned in business as I was building that mortgage brokerage. is that we had a great marketing piece, something I created on my computer, a Microsoft Word document I created. And that thing just took off like fire. Everybody else in the company was saying, "What are you doing? How are you doing so well?" Because I saw all the other marketing methods, they weren't working. They weren't doing the things that I wanted them to do. I didn't like the cost. I didn't like the quality. We had all these different things. And I was like, let me just do something. So I literally prayed. And I said, okay, God, you got to give me a structure. You got to give me a way to reach people because the way we're doing it is just not effective. That thing took off. I had two phones. My phones were ringing so much. I had two cell phones, and the phones would start ringing early in the morning. And this is pre, like internet being used for everything. This is when people still wanted to talk, and everything was done via mail. There were no, docu-signs and those types of things. None of that was there. And so I remember things doing so well that I reached out to my the person who handled my mail merges and mail for me, and I said, "We're doing really well." I said, "We're doing too good." I said, "Scale back the marketing." And in hindsight, I said, "Why in the world would I scale it back?" I learned a very powerful lesson through that. One is that at the end of the day, you can never be doing too well, number one. But then number two, you're in the marketing business. So if you view whatever you're doing through the lenses of what's the story we're telling, whose eyeballs are we getting in front of? I heard this phrase the other day. We live in an attention economy, and we do. The biggest businesses aren't the best. Sometimes, and I think a lot of entrepreneurs, especially entrepreneurs who are builders, sometimes you think if I have something better, that people will see that it's better. And the truth is, while that's an element, that's not really the way the market works. The way the market works is people go where they know, not necessarily where they grow, or not necessarily where something is better. And so it's the marketing business. Get in front of as many people as you can, get the product out. And I would say this is the last tip. Imperfect execution is far better than perfect talk, than perfect, contemplation. Sometimes we wait. I just got to be exactly right. The website's got to be exactly right. You better launch that site and build it as you fly it. But you got to generate sales. You got to generate marketing. Oh, as soon as I got all these things together, I learned that sometimes the best thing to do, especially if you're a person of excellence, which sometimes can be borderline perfectionist, sometimes the best thing you can do is just start, just get it going, just take the next step. Because I just want it to be perfect. Here's the truth. Most of the times, the market's not even going to recognize the perfection that you've delayed over and over and over, year after year after year. Just do it. Imperfect execution is better than perfect contemplation.
Bishop Foreman, what would you say are you most proud of to date?
Mm. Wow. I am most proud of, this is a spiritual thing for me. I'm most proud of the fact that I have devoted over half of my life to what I believe my purpose is and why God sent me to the earth. Really, since I was a kid, but in a very formal way as an adult. While most people were trying to figure out life in their 20s and 30s, um, I gave my life to the work of the Lord. As a kid, as an adolescent, I gave my life to the work of the Lord. So I'm most proud of the fact that I've dedicated my life to what I believe in. And for the foreseeable future, that's the intention. Number two, I'm most proud of the fact that I am the first. And all this talk about being a curse breaker and history maker, in my family, my bloodline, that's what I am. I'm the first bishop, first pastor. In fact, I had the privilege of ordaining my grandfather into ministry. He passed away about a year and a half ago.
Mm.
Our college had the privilege of conferring his doctorate upon him for his work. And so I am the first. And I think when you do that, sometimes, and everybody listening can understand this, when you're the first, you don't really recognize the significance of your achievements or accomplishments because you're just busy going to the next thing. And sometimes I have to step back and say, wait a minute, you've done something. And not for a place of arrogance, not from a place of feeling better than, but from a simple place of recognizing you started from nothing Nobody handed you anything. Like literally, a lot of people tell their stories and say, nobody handed me anything except somebody gave me this $20,000 loan, or somebody gave me this $100,000 loan, or somebody gave me this million. Yeah, well, that's not nothing. I literally know what it is to start with nothing and turn it into something. And I think that is something that I'm proud of. And third and finally, and not last, I think all of these are important. Number one, the spiritual component for me is most important. But lastly, I look at the fact that the lives, and it's a recurring theme for me, the lives that have been impacted, the stories. I kept every card I've ever been given over 20 years. And it was so many of them we had to put them in these shadow boxes and kind of cut them up just so that we could keep them. But I look at those lives. I look at the people who say, I didn't commit suicide because I watched you online. I didn't give up on my life because I saw one of your videos. Every time I'm out, there's not a day that goes by somebody doesn't walk up to me, and they'll walk up to me with their phone and they'll have a video of me on it and they'll point to it and they'll say, "Is this you?" I said, "That's me, that's me, that's me." And they say, "Oh my God, you have no clue. You just got me through this divorce. You have no clue. I was waiting just every day just to hear what you were going to say to me." That type of impact in the lives of people is something that for me, it never gets old.
Bishop Foreman, and if you can do it, others can do it. And this is really powerful. Bishop Foreman, you have big plans and goals. You have this expansion to Atlanta, Georgia. Talk to us about what's in store for you for the next couple of years.
Yes. So we moved our headquarters from Denver, Colorado, which has been so good to us, to Atlanta, Georgia, which is absolutely a step of faith because it's sort of like, why make a move when everything's good? And for me, it's a faith thing. And I think that whenever you are given an opportunity to do something greater, it requires greater. More costs more. More requires more. Bigger requires bigger. I think that's it. So we're in Atlanta, Georgia. We're going to be launching here really soon. And again, we're a hybrid church in buildings and online. So out of the thousands, tens of thousands that are connected, over 16,000 in our database that are connected, they're across America, around the world. Black, white, tall, short, every socioeconomic background, every educational background. We call it like the United Nations of Church. And so we love that. So we're here in Atlanta now. We'll be launching really soon. People can get more information about that at bishopforeman.com. So we're excited about that. My new book, which will coincide with the evolution of who we are, History Makers, literally teaches you how to be a history maker in your everyday life. It doesn't matter who you are, it teaches you how to do that. And so that they can find out more about that at bishopforeman.com. We're consistently building this new community, Kings and Priests, which is something that I'm really excited about because I have a goal of seeing and creating as many new 6 and 7 figure earners as possible. And somebody said, why? Well, because when people are empowered financially, a lot of the other problems go away. That's why the Bible says money answers all things. And so money's not going to, make you happier. Money's not going to buy you love. Money's not going to give you great quality people in your life, but it's going to make all those things a little bit easier. And so for me, when people are empowered, they can change their families, change their communities, change their life, change their health. So many things like that. So that's another big thing that's super important for us too, is health. So in that community, we're talking faith, we're talking fitness, we're talking finances. It's really exciting to do that. And then, of course, we've got, I'm always doing shows. I'm always speaking. I'm always traveling. I'm always on great shows like yours and encouraging people and building up people, empowering people from every aspect of life, whether it's relationships or finance or business, whatever it is, and still writing books. And which I already made reference to that last one, the one that's about to come out, History Makers. But there's a few that we've released. One's called Making Money Moves: The Art of Getting Your Finances in Order. I wrote that book after having built that very successful business I told you about, watching that entire industry collapse. And I tell the story of how I built back better from scratch again. What do you do after you've built something and then now you got to start over again? I think that valleys are just setups for victories. And so I talk about that. Another one of the books, Sins of the Fathers. I made reference to that with my stepfather. And he never met his biological father, yet he was exactly like that man. And how do you break through some of those things? How do you become the curse breaker? Another book, Evolutionaries, using the life cycle of a butterfly. A butterfly starts as small as a sesame seed on a sesame seed bun and then transforms to what we see as a butterfly through four distinct stages of growth. And so I talk about that a little bit in that book. So just, I think they're books that are going to really help people get a hold of their future.
Bishop Foreman, if you had a postcard that you could write to every human on this planet with a sentence, what would it say?
Woo! I got you. You still have a pulse, so God still has a plan.
Amazing. Bishop
That's
Foreman,
it right there.
Yes, I think we're going to finish with that. What a great finish. Thank you for being a history maker, for seeing possibility in everybody. And what angers you, listener, that's exactly where you can make a difference. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.